The music in this campaign has to have been some of the best that Soul ever did. It's unbelievable, man. Welcome to the abridged recap of Guild Wars 1 Factions. A little bit of insight into the region of Cantha as we prepare to travel here in the sequel 260, probably, really more realistic, years later. So, in the previous part, as we opened, we learned about the monastery and Minister Cho's estate, where we have discovered a sickness has come to the land, causing people to kind of become zombies. I mean, without the being dead part. However, at the very end of the Minister Cho's estate mission, we did find that the Minister himself pretty much was a zombie. In fact, a very advanced zombie, one of those weird blobby flood-like looking zombies. So really the story is that we're in this mixed blend Asian environment with these hyper magical, fantastical, disaster-born areas, a city, and what Arena Net are actually doing is they're telling a zombie story, really. We're going to be fighting a lot of undead. So the story so far is we were once humble students at the monastery, and now we have been thrust into this disaster on its way. We've traveled across the majority of Xingji Island at this point. We've traveled through a mountain range in the center of it. We've encountered Tengu. We've encountered the Naga at places like the Haiju Lagoon. We've encountered Yeti in the mountains. And now finally, we're at this place called Zendaijan. So Zendaijan is the location of a great monastery, and this once holy valley has fallen to the affliction, and mission 2 is here. This is going to be a lot harder than the previous part. We now have 6 party members, though, 6 monsters that we can play with. Hopefully we'll do okay. The 2 builds that I actually chose to go through with is mine, the Afflicted Servant, and also we have the Naga Whelp, I think it was. It's not actually a Naga Whelp, it's just a Naga Warrior, I think, that we're playing with. So hopefully we'll do okay. Let's start the video off by talking to the NPC in the area who will give us a recap about what has occurred here. We'll get an introductory cutscene and we can go through. So that's going to be Brother Han Jui, who says it was here in Zendaijan that Master Togo and the headmasters of Xingji Monastery tracked what they believe to be the source of the affliction on Xingji Island. So yeah, the headmasters that originally gave us like the tutorial quests kind of start fighting alongside us, and I believe we can actually recruit them as henchmen right here. Yeah, like Zoe, for example, Professor Guy. A lot of these guys, they're actually the people that were originally lecturing us to sort of, I guess, to show that we've become on par with us. Max level is obviously 20. This is a level 16 environment. Factions did a thing where they very rapidly moved you to the level cap, level 20, so that the rest of the game could be decent combat was the theory for everyone. I could actually go into a massive essay and discussion about whether that was a big mistake for factions, but I'll refrain. In any case, he says, Yizhou Tan, the kind of snobbish, superior student that's always been ahead of us, the monastery's prize students, tracked ahead to the valley in an attempt to discover the exact location of the plague source to report back to Togo. If you choose to enter this mission, you will witness the party of teachers and students Master Togo has assembled as they attempt to find and destroy the source of the affliction. So we believe it comes from here, a holy place. And Yizhou has gone on ahead, and we'll discover what that's all about there. I don't really have too much more to say about Xingji as we travel in now. It was a cooler environment, very, interesting in terms of the agriculture and very peaceful. It was your typical kind of Star Island experience, but with a sort of East Asian theme. I really liked this area. I'm looking forward to returning to it in Guild Wars 2, and particularly some of these extra areas that we never got to go to before. Hopefully the devs will do something fun with. We've seen that in Guild Wars 2. They really aren't scared of messing with the geography a lot, though. So like this island up here, it might not look like that in Guild Wars 2 whatsoever. In fact, here's a funny story. In Guild Wars 2, the data mined or mysterious map you can get of the world, say the Dermid Priory Carpet, I've done a video on that before, actually shows that 250 years in the future, Xingji Island is connected to the mainland by a land bridge here. Perhaps because of receding water, or maybe it's just a very weird asset and attribute of that particular texture that won't end up really being a thing. But I wouldn't be surprised. I'd actually think it'd be really cool if there was a land bridge connecting them all together sometime in the future, because that is what that texture kind of suggests, though I'm not sure whether we really need to look into it too deeply. This is the player base going to really extreme degrees to get hints at what's going on with factions and Cantha from quite a few years ago now. 2014-15 is when we discovered that. So yeah, it's a nice, humble little place, and this was the last mission before we leave. So let's replay the introductory cinematic. Of course, all these cinematics actually looking better nowadays than when I'd originally shot my main series on this, just because the render distance is pushed out further, or rather the fog that obscures your vision is receded away. And they do slightly better with shadows and textures and things. So water buffalo, big thing here in Cantha. I'd like to see more of those in Guild Wars 2. They're obviously sick, wounded. And we see the villagers become sickened too. The screen check's kind of weird. I don't actually think there is an earthquake or any sense that tremors or vibrations heralded the onset of the infection. I think they're just using that as, you know, a cinematic device to show you something is happening. And they were probably limited with their tools. Most of what's really cool about Factions is not in these cutscenes, frankly. It's the secondary quests, and it's the information from the massive document in Empire Divided and so on.
I'm glad you have come.
What was that?
I do not know. But let us hope that whatever made that sound did not suffer long. Be on your guard. Who knows what foul things we may find inside.
So a big thing I expect to come back in Guild Wars 2, obviously these bells. We've already seen some in concept art. But the big red gates as well. So here we see some more afflicted. The one on the right is a sickened. Probably another sickened servant, to be honest. But the thing on the left is another member of the afflicted, so they're more advanced.
Just like Minister Cho.
Whatever it was that infected my old friend has spread. We must get to the bottom of this. Come.
So one of the big issues with the Factions campaign, and this won't really translate into Guild Wars 2 too well, I don't think, is it was really obsessed with the sickness. So this game that I'm playing, we'll have a look with drafting on the monsters. There's actually so many cool creatures that are in this environment, this setting. But the main campaign of this game was really laser focused on the sickness and the afflicted. And you end up fighting, like, predominantly them through most of the game if all you're doing is the main storyline. And the game had a real issue with over aggro, where basically everywhere you moved, even when you're in the Jade Sea, for example, later, and you'll see this in episodes to come, we're going to find a lot of afflicted everywhere, really. So get used to the way they look. That one we just fought a second ago is what the Afflicted Assassins look like. And, well, this is where it all really starts in terms of fighting a ton of them. But first, we have a draft to do. So let's head on over and deal ourselves some more cards. So the way the game is played, I haven't really given you guys all the rules just yet, but every new mission, you get to draw as many monsters... or draft, I should say, as many monsters as the party size. So we already have 2, but we're going to get an additional 6 now. So we actually get to play a little bit with the team. You're going to find that I start struggling really soon, or I'm pretty sure I will. And, you know, if I fail, then what I'm going to be able to do, I'm going to have a lot of monsters to select my actual ultimate party, if that makes sense. So what have we drawn? Well, we have got the Island Guardian. So I think I talked about this in the last episode. Really cool creature. It's like an oak heart, but from Factions. There were a couple of variants of them. Looks like we've drawn the most common one here, which is kind of a monkey variant. He's got Bane Signet. He's got a smiting ability, and then he's also got some restorative healing things. Also, what's really important about him is he actually has a hard resurrection ability, Resurrect. It's actually kind of a really rubbish spell that you wouldn't find many Guild Wars 1 players use, but in the context of this challenge, and that I don't have any hard reses, he could be really good. I remember fighting Island Guardians mostly because of the Mount Kinkai speed clears that I used to do, in which you could, you know, be a 600 tank and the Bane Signet would still go through because it's a, you know, it's a Signet, it's a knockdown. That's a really good build, I think. Healing Seed, Healing Breeze, I like that build. But we've also got the Elementals construct. So there's a construct for each of the 8 professions in the game. The lore behind these are the things created by the great antagonists of this story. You actually can see a mark on its chest right now, which this series will talk about by the end of this video. So he's the elemental version, the elementalist version. He's got a mix of air spells, water spells. He's also got the enchantment Aura of Restoration, which is pretty good. Although, oh, we drew 2 constructs. Interesting. Or we get the Ranger's construct, who has Famine as a spell. So I could, if I get another monster that's in this campaign, it's all about removing energy. That would actually be really good with this. They'd synergize so well. He's also got some good bow abilities, throw dirt, troll unguent. Rangers, I think, can do pretty good in the hands of AI. Just because of it's, you know, the range that they get to just stand there and plink away. I kind of think the Island Guardian's my favorite right now. I really want a good support, so I'm gonna pick up the Island Guardian. Welcome to the team. And these 2 are gonna be discarded. So 1, 2, 3. All right, so we get a Kappa. Pretty cool turtle creatures. I expect them to come back in Guild Wars 2. This is, so a lot of Kappa, early game Kappa just use Ice Spear, and then as you find more and more dangerous ones throughout the game, they get stronger. This is the final tier version of Kappa. It's actually technically an ancient Kappa we're looking at here. But it has water attunement, nice, melee hate there with blurred vision. There's an outcast from the Jade Sea, an ill-sickened member of the Luxon community that dug too deep and too greedily and got corrupted by a demon beneath the Jade. We'll learn more about these guys later. Another good, really good Ranger build. Favorable wins there, Glass Arrows. Glass Arrows inflicts daze and can really mess up casters. That could be good. I think there's a lot of Afflicted in Zendai Jun. Antidote Signet cleanses Condis on him, and there might be Condis coming. Or Undergrowth. So this is kind of a planty creature we'll find a way later in the game. Looks like an axe character, actually. Uses a lot of axe abilities. I already have kind of one melee guy, though. The Naga Whelp. I don't know. Let's go. Let's take the Kappa. I like Kappa. Let's take the Kappa. Throw those 2 away. Draw 3. Okay, so Grasping Roots. Another Ranger. Throws dirt. Poisons people, traps people. Okay, now an assassin of the Ampha. So this is like a thug from the mainland city. The assassins are tricky and dangerous to use. I like this build though. Unsuspecting strike would do a lot of damage. Fox fangs. He's got flashing blades, I think, for the elite, which means he blocks a lot as long as he's attacking. He has a self-heal. He can blind people. Oh, or a dredge. So dredge, of course, were parts of factions and Cantha. You find them in the Echo Veld Forest. He's like a bonder. That's kind of interesting. He does lots of bondy, healy things. I think the question is, can we heal enough with just the Island Guardian? I think we can. Let's take an assassin here. So that's our 3rd draw. We're halfway there. We'll draw another character. Draft another character here. So a Manta that would heal. Necromancer. Does it have a summon though? I don't think there's actually a summon on that. Blood is Power is pretty interesting. Or another kind of protective monk. Let's get the Song Warden. So we kind of got a Healy guy and a Protecty guy. My question is, are we going to actually have enough damage here? I'm a little bit scared about that. So this is our 5th character. A Mantis Stormcaller. I think we saw him in the previous video. The Necromancer. We're getting a lot of the constructs here. Gaki. The Gaki I'm going to take. Gaki tend to be really good ritualists. They're like goat people, basically. What's really, really powerful and cool about him, though, is he's going to summon a lot of spirits that will help us a lot. I think getting that Gaki has convinced me that we'll be okay. I think this is all right so far. And then our final draw, we can get another... Jesus, we've got so many Healy kind of characters here. A Shuriken Ritualist. Looks like he has a bunch of the other spirits that might be pretty good. Or a Maddened Thorn Warden, who's like a degenerative assassin. That's a weird build. Or just a straight-up priest that can heal, and I would get to assign my own skill with him. I think we have enough healing. Word of Healing, that elite is really good. I think we have enough, though. I'm going to go with the Ritualist. I think. These 2 writs complement each other quite well. Okay, and then the team itself, so we've got 8 characters that we can pick from. But the team itself, we can only take 6. I think I'm not going to use either of my original guys. I think I'll just keep these in reserve for now. And we may come back to them later, right? They can be good later. But I think I'll use these as my team for the next mission. So I'll see you guys in there. Let's play it. Hopefully we can do well. All right, so all of our builds are applied. Let's move on in. Now that I've set them up and had a good look, I'm a little bit worried our monsters aren't as good as I thought they were. I mean, the ritualists are definitely really badass. Let's run through it. So, first of all, me. Okay, so let's go back, right? I'm the Madden Song Warden. My build is like hyper-focused around one specific idea, and that's making the team like block, essentially. So basically, I maintain Divine Boon on myself, which means when I enchant people, I'll heal them a bit more, right? And then basically, my elite allows me to cast enchantments quicker. And I spam Reversal of Fortune, which means when they get attacked, they get a bit more health. And Guardian, which means when they can block for a while. That's it. I just spam Reversal of Fortune and Guardian. That's what I'm going to be doing. So I'm kind of a weird build, like a very specialized kind of strange thing. Moving over, well, what else we got? Let's do it from Tabletop Simulator. This Ritualist, super strong. This is basically a heal writ. The Shuriken Ritualist will be absolutely fine here, I think. We've got recuperation and we've got life and just lots of powerful things. The Melodic Gaki is just super damaging. The Elite is called Clamor of Souls, and what it means is they'll just do straight up damage if there's a spirit alive nearby, which there will be because I've got like 3 spirits there. The Kappa should be pretty good. I think we're okay in general, and the Island Guardians are going to be okay as well. Be interesting to see the DPS on this one because I don't contribute any damage. I'm a support on this one. So yeah, let's run on through the now fallen Holy Spiritual Valley of Zendaijan. So let's jump straight on in on what they had to say in the strategy guide about Zendaijan. They say players must journey with Togo through Zendaijan, encountering afflicted creatures and pestilent regions shrouded in a foul miasma on a search for Yijo Tan. Yijo was last seen entering the Sacred Valley at Master Togo's request and has not been heard from since. The heroes will encounter shrines dedicated to Zunra, the holy guardian of the valley. At this shrine, some players may stop to pray, ringing a bell which summons Zunra to cure any harmful conditions. The mission ends when the heroes manage to defeat 3 afflicted bosses of increasing strength and power. Their description of the end of the mission is kind of weird, because the truth is you just kind of fight all the bosses almost together. I wonder whether that was something the devs were going for, but ended up not really implementing very well in the end. But yeah, so this mission essentially, you see this purple gaseous smoke around. If you step in it, you become sick, you become ill. The game never really properly addresses why you don't get sick yourself, except sort of implicitly in this mission, where how that really affects you is you get degenerated very, very hard and you can't get rid of it. It's like a condition. It's like having burning on you or bleeding on you, but it's very strong and it will not go away. The only way to get it to go away is with this Kirin. So Kirin are quite interesting. They're spirit creatures. Obviously, Eastern mythology talks about them a little bit, I believe. In Guild Wars, they kind of look like horses with fish scales. They look almost aquatic, honestly, and some of the concept art does that as well. But here you can see I'm standing in the miasma, and the Kirin, the spirit of this valley, will cast Blessing of the Kirin, enchant us all. And now when I'm enchanted, if I use a skill, my miasma goes away and I stop getting degenerated, as you can see. But everyone in the party needs to know to cast something, and not all of them do. So if you look at, say, our Amphar Assassin right there, represented on the hero Miku, they're getting degenerated. They could cast Shadow Refuge, get rid of that degeneration, and they'd be fine. But the AI doesn't know to do it. So it's kind of fiddly and kind of weird. Much better if you're playing with actual players, but these days, come on, that's not really much of a thing. So, you know, a lot of micromanagement. There are 2 ways really to do this mission. One is to have Zunra with you, keep Zunra alive, utilize that enchantment, that cleansing. The other is to avoid all the pools of gas. I actually think this is a really well-implemented mission on ArenaNet's end. It was very difficult when the game came out, but the idea that you've actually got multiple ways of getting through, that's like a buzzwordy thing that game studios often say and they're often going for, but it's usually nonsense. Here it's actually kind of true, you know, like your technique can change and both ideas are viable. If you want to be very cautious, like you look at my minimap right now, my compass, you can see there's so many mobs around, and I'm going to be cautious here, and I'm going to try and take them out and kill the patrols. Or you could just kind of rush through and hope to keep Zunra alive. Now, with my monsters, I really struggle here. Guys, Zunra melts. You'll see that Zunra's only level 13. And look how quickly Zunra gets targeted down. It's nasty. If I'm really early with Guardian, I can probably, you know, keep it going, because a lot of the damage is from, like, hammer afflicted and, you know, projectiles and stuff that would get blocked. But it's between me and the Island Guardian, we can't really keep her alive. And she dies a lot. So I keep having to go to these bells, which are an interesting part of this level. They're not marked with quest icons or anything on the map. You have to actually look with your eyes to find these shrines. And then, you know, well, you could hold like Alt to highlight all objects and then you could click them. But here, so Zunra died. I go to the bell. You ring it. It's got that lovely sound effect. Zunra comes out. You speak to Zunra. Zunra will follow you again. And so I have a bit of a complication with that later as we go along. Back to the strategy guide. They do obviously have some other information about Togo. They say Togo was the one who sent Yizhou Tan to Zendaijan and will not rest until he finds out what's happened to his missing student. Which is a nice little description, really, because in-game, I don't think they do enough to make Togo, like, repent or feel bad for sending this student out on his own into such a dangerous place. Zunra is described by the strategy guide. Now remember, in-game Guild Wars 1 doesn't really have like a codex or a bestiary. So it can be difficult to get like extra lore information. But the guide gives you that sometimes. It says here, Zunra is a magic Kirin, and they spell that with a dash, which is different to in-game. An animal-like NPC monk who can remove harmful conditions from players. Like most Kirin, Zunra is not defenseless. What you guys might not know, thinking about Guild Wars 2 here, Kirin is obviously a cool candidate for a mount. It's just horsey enough, but it's not really a horse, so it doesn't break that whole thing about the franchise, the tongue-in-cheek joke we've always had going on, like, where are the horses? Even though they're in lore, we don't actually see them in engine. There's actually multiple varieties of Kirin in Cantha. I don't know whether I'll draw some of them later. There's any chance we will, but there's like a Jade version. There's a Mossy version. This is kind of the iconic Kirin, though, and it would be this kind of fish scale appearance. And at this point in the story and in the plot, it's really like there's only one. Like, this is a known specific entity. But later you start to find lots of them around, so I don't know how Guild Wars 2 will treat this subject material, as though there were only ever a couple. And that whole thing of them being spirits but not looking spiritual whatsoever, I don't know whether that's, you know, some Eastern mythology stuff that's going over my head. Probably is. So there you can see a boss, buy another bell. You can choose to avoid the bell and not kill the boss, which would allow you to get through the mission quicker, but you have more risk if Zunra dies, right? Like, that's cool. There's an interesting push-pull there. If the game's balance was in such a place that this continued to be a threat to you. But, you know, Guild Wars 1, just as the sequel did, got undermined in various ways by overpowered metas and so on. But, so yeah, the guide says about the Afflicted that no one can tell what these creatures once were. The plague has turned them into deadly living nightmares. So I guess the idea is, were some of them humans? Were some of them animals? We will actually see, like, a very interesting type of enemy in this mission, which is, like, half afflicted, like, bulls and stuff. You'll see me fighting some soon. That you don't really get anywhere else in Factions, or anywhere else in Guild Wars 1 in its entirety, really. Factions had an interesting thing going on where you could find mobs that the devs never reused anywhere else. Like, when we get to the city, you're going to find these things called vermin. They're not afflicted, and in the lore, there's supposed to be loads of them everywhere, but you only find them in one place in the whole game. And this mission's kind of similar in that regard. There's some very, very unique, weird, like, half-afflicted abomination kind of enemies. But get used to the ones that we're looking at here, because, you know, this is... When I think Factions, these mobs that we're fighting here are very iconic. At the start of the video, I mentioned... I think in the previous part, I mentioned that this game was laser focused on this variety of enemy. It's interesting when we think about Guild Wars 2 and the expansion upcoming, because the story here, spoilers, we're going to cure this plague. So one of the iconic things that I always think about when it comes to Cantha just can't really or won't necessarily be there in the sequel unless they just like retreading old stories again and find some excuse to bring the Afflicted back. The Afflicted should be gone, so we shouldn't necessarily see any, and it feels like that's a large dimension, a big slice of this whole area that we won't be reliving. So if you're looking for that nostalgia of those coming up, you got to think about, like, it's not really plausible. I've always liked the idea that maybe 250 years, 260 years from now, in some rotten old skanked out basement, there were a couple of Afflicted left, and there could be like a minor plot, a minor story about containing them. Maybe worthwhile for a single Guild Wars 2 meta event or something. But I don't know whether that's really that meaningful to me anymore. I'm not too sure. The guide says about the bosses here that 3 of the Afflicted are more powerful than the others, will present a true challenge for Togo and the heroes, but it doesn't substantiate that in any way. And it does have some worthwhile stuff about the strategies. It says ranged attacks work well here. You want to lure your foes into position rather than confront them on their own turf. That's absolutely true. And you'll see me do that a lot as well. These purple cloud fields, you don't really want to fight in them, especially if Zuna is dead. Because you do that, everyone's getting degenerated and in a tricky fight. And in case I haven't established the stakes here for you Guild Wars 2 players watching this video, in Guild Wars 1, if you all die, that's it. You get kicked right back to the start. It's not this like new MMO mindset where everything is ludicrously forgiving and you just click a button and you respawn in front of the encounter, or you waypoint and just rush back to the meta event or whatever. Guild Wars 1 had a very different kind of long-term attritive design, which was much more frustrating to play with, but also, in my opinion, much more rewarding to play with, that would regularly lead you to investing 20 minutes into a mission or something. It takes me about 20 minutes in this attempt at this mission here. And if you wipe at the end, that's it. You got to do all 20 minutes again. No checkpoints in the middle. So, you know, there's an element of caution and fear and tension that I really thrived on in video games that you just don't see in MMOs anymore. Guild Wars 2 will not be replicating. They've had multiple opportunities to introduce game formats like that, but they're very clear, I think, that they're not interested in it. Fractals aren't calibrated that way. Dungeons aren't calibrated that way. Raids aren't calibrated that way. Open world isn't calibrated that way. Nothing in Guild Wars 2 really captures the long-term nature that Guild Wars 1 was all about in terms of play sessions and so on. And that's obviously just pandering to what the majority gamer wants. They want more bite-sized, fast-foody content experiences, so... You know, I've come to terms with it all, but I do want to be very clear with you guys just how scary it would be towards the end of the mission, fighting bosses in their own pool of muck and then getting yourself wiped. You really wouldn't want to do that. So the strategy section here is pretty fair. They say that the final showdown in this mission will take place on the far side of a bridge, where 3 afflicted bosses anticipate our arrival while bathing in a noxious cloud. We should keep our eye on the health of any party members and pull them away. So yeah, the strategy guide doesn't really say too much more, not much more we can glean from that. Talking about my monster team here, I'm going to talk about my build a little bit. I actually really fell in love with this build as I was playing it. So the elite means that when I cast a protections prayers spell, which both Guardian and Reversal of Fortune, the right hand 2 skills are, whenever I do that, it costs 5 energy less. And that's not like minimum 5 energy. That is just 5 energy less. So because both skills cost 5 energy, that means they are free. So the way that this build works is if I was a monk primary and I had divine favor, I could have my bond up. Every time I cast one of those protection prayers, I would heal a good amount because of the divine favor, inherent bonus plus the boon. And then I could just spam for free those other 2 really quick fire spells. And I'm healing and causing them to block. And in just those 4 skills, you have a really efficient, cool little thing that an AI, if you think about this from the perspective of ArenaNet were making a build for a monster to use, an AI can just spam. All it has to do is maintain these enchantments. Just spam, 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 spam. And it can be really effective. And this kind of taught me something about Guild Wars 1 that I don't think in all my years ever playing it I ever really wrestled with. And that is that some builds are really viable builds without having to fill out the whole bar. This is only half of a bar, and there's a very distinct, clear like concept and idea going on here that the devs knew about and had actually utilized and implemented. There are mobs in the game that will use this. And, you know, I just never noticed. I think that's really, really cool. I had a lot of fun playing this. Unfortunately, because I'm a Mesmer primary, not a Monk primary, it's not that effective. I should think when I next draft about picking up a Mesmer build so that I can play the Mesmer build and utilize my fast casting and stuff like that. But so far, I really haven't had too many opportunities for that. So yeah, it has been difficult keeping Zuna alive on this. What you're going to find, I think, at this point in the run is I'm at the far side of the valley now. There's actually another entrance to this zone, which you can re-enter once you've beaten the mission. So this starts off as a mission exclusive location with a linear path, sort of, and you know, specific story. But later you can come back, and this is where you would enter when you come back. I'm here looking for a bell because Zuna is dead, and I know that the end of the mission is going to have loads of poison gas. But I just can't, or miasmic gas, I should say. But I can't find any bells here, so I just need to basically press on and hope that I can find another way through. One thing to note about the routing through this mission is it's not totally linear. You actually get not just a choice about avoiding gas clouds or going through them with Zynra or avoiding bells or keeping Zynra alive, not all that stuff, but it's a valley with a big hole in the middle, basically. And you can choose, do you go around the right-hand side of the basin or do you go around the left-hand side of the basin? And yeah, that's totally your choice. You could do this mission twice, back to back, and go left on one route and go right on the other and have a completely different experience where you're fighting different stuff. You can see I'm fighting these bulls and things here. You know, you might not come across these if you go the other route. That's actually a bad example since I'm right in front of the bridge at the end right now, so you probably would fight these bulls each time. But that was something I really appreciated about this map as well, and some of the Guild Wars 1 design that made it feel like, you know, all players come through this mission and did this as a part of factions. But there was still that choice of how exactly did you see it. And that meant something as well in like a heavily cooperative game where, you know, my mate might log in 3 hours from now and he wants to play and I've already beat the mission. Well, look, it's not that annoying because I'll go left this time instead of right. I'll find different enemies, get different drops, capture different boss skills, whatever, you know, and I still get bang for my buck. I might be leveling as I go through, you know, if I'm not level 20 yet. That wasn't much of a thing for Guild Wars, obviously. But here, look, I'm spamming Guardian and Reversal of Fortune at 0 energy. It's funny, Reversal of Fortune as well, by the way, the skill is specifically the next time the ally that is enchanted would take damage, that damage instead becomes healing. So if they get hit for 1 damage, Reversal of Fortune, sorry, will just heal for 1. I forgot that. I thought it would just be a flat packet back, but no. It's healing the exact amount of damage that they would have taken up to a cap of about 60 for me with my investment as it is. So, really, it is something good to spam. And if I had lots of Divine Favor, I could be healing lots as I did it as well. And it's cool. It's just a matter of keeping up Air of Enchantment. Having some weapon mods that would increase enchantment times would be pretty nice as well. Okay, so these are the first 2 bosses. Afflicted Yijo is one of them. Dun dun dun. Big spoiler, big scary moment. Yijo is defeated. If you weren't watching my Abridged series here, if you're watching the full series, you might have got a little bit more impact out of that. Most players didn't. I can't stress this enough. Whenever I come back to covering Guild Wars 1 content, I have to instill it upon you Guild Wars 2 players just how little people used to care about the story. Nobody cared. If you asked 100 Guild Wars 1 players who Yijo Tan was at the moment of fighting this boss, 95 of them wouldn't have a clue. And of the 5 that did have a clue, maybe 1 of them actually cared or felt some emotional resonance from that moment. You really had to pick into every little bit of side quest dialogue and really like go the extra mile to find these things and you know, really care about them. That's what my main series attempted to do here, because I have always thought that Guild Wars is very rich and has lots of this side stuff that people just missed. These days I think people care way more about lore in games. It kind of became a bit of I consider it to be somewhat in vogue. It's sort of what everyone does now. Everyone talks about lore. It's the next big hot thing or something. But back then, it was only a few people that were really, really interested. I myself wasn't interested until the twilight years of the game. And I started to figure out. So anyway, yeah, I've killed the first 2 bosses. And the goal of this entire mission is to finish the temple out in the very center of this valley. But there's so much gas in there and Zuna is dead, I needed to find another bell. So if you actually look a minute ago, when I was at the entrance of the temple, I just looked around physically with my camera, saw a bell off in the distance, and now I'm running over to ring it and actually get Zuna back. I really do think Guild Wars 2 is going to do a lot with this bell stuff. I mean, here you're literally seeing I'm ringing them. It's not too much of a thing in Guild Wars 1, but I wonder if it means something that the very first concept art that they gave us to tease us about this expansion here in 2020 was one of these big bells, really, right? And I wonder what Zunra as a spirit has to say or do with respect to the Elder Dragon story. How ancient it is. A lot of this this world building and setting, especially in Cantha, just doesn't gel that well with the whole Elder Dragon threat. It felt very special and different and distinct. You know, when we had the Alolan campaign, the only other campaign to ever be added, right? Because we started with Prophecies. Ilona was kind of built from the ground up to hook into Prophecy stories. It was about the Prophecies gods, and it was about the little hint that had been there in the Crystal Desert and the land masses connected together. So, you know, they were kind of together. And then Guild Wars 2 was obviously hooking into all that stuff. Cantha is so remote in so many ways and so isolated. Probably as a result of, you know, to be honest, the business decisions the devs were going with way back when they were trying to convince you that you could buy factions and it didn't matter if you played Prophecies. They wanted your money anyway. It's for new players and existing. So, you know, just give them something totally new. I think that's what they were going for, and that's why factions feel so separate. But now we have this as a part of the franchise, and it feels very, very distinct, and that's kind of one thing I love about it now, you know, even if that is kind of an accident, kind of a consequence. So anyway, as you can see there, I did all that to get Zunra with me, and Zunra died anyway. Luckily, we don't need to use Zunra to cleanse the gas or anything. That's for a secondary quest a little bit later that this abridged series won't be covering. You can actually see me mistakenly thinking I can cleanse the gas in this video a little bit earlier. And then I remembered, oh no, that was elsewhere. All we got to do is kill these bosses and then just stand around awkwardly for a second. Maybe to give us time to skill capture for the cutscene. And there you go, that's Zendaijan. And we find this mark, which is really the main bit of the story here. Oh boy. Well, there we go. I doubt I actually got a master time on that. No, I didn't. I only got like, wow, hold on, what is that? What does it go? Master? I can't remember what the tiers of rewards are. Expert is the funnel one, isn't it? I think I got master but not expert there. Anyway, that's funny. It's because I had to do so much backtracking.
I had hoped that my eyes would not bear witness to this symbol again.
Master, what is it?
This is the harbinger of the deceiver, the mark of the wicked, the guild symbol of Shiro Tagachi.
The man whose death turned the forest to stone and the sea to jade?
The very same. This does not bode well for Cantha. We must head to the mainland and get to the root of this evil before it can... Well, let us not think about that yet. I have sent a missive to Menlo of Ascalon, one of my former students. He will no doubt be making his way to Cantha shortly. If this symbol means what I think it does, then we could all be in great danger. I must find my brother in Kaineng City. He will want to know of this. You will come after and meet me. Talk to First Mate Zhang to book your passage to the mainland. He will get you to the other side safely.
All right, well, so 3 pretty big bits of information there. First of all, there is a mark on the temple floor. Now, that's like the red glowing hand. If you actually watch the trailer of Factions, I recommend it. It's one of the best trailers they ever did. You will see that very moment we just played on the temple floor with the hand scarred into it. They actually did that in full CGI. There he mentions Menlo as well. That's a little nod to the Tyrion players and where they'll enter the story. That little thing about Menlo, actually, there is a very old post on the Guild Wars 1 official website that had a little short story where you get to read the missive, that Togo is sending. Was pretty cool. And I once did a little video about it as a teaser for one of the lore videos that I made about Factions. So, yeah, lots of cool little things there. Essentially, yeah, we're starting to find out that Shiro is involved. And we're going to leave the little starter island, head over to the main city. There's not much more fanfare or reason for us to go there, except that we are supposedly going to see Togo's brother, and I'm not sure in the story that we actually know who that is just yet, so I'll refrain on saying that. And then pretty much you leave. You come back to Saitang Harbor, which we'd actually already visited in the story. The only way into this half of the island with the Haiju Lagoon and stuff was through Saitang, so we'd already seen this. And yeah, we get to progress. We find out that Yijo is dead. We actually have to fight several characters, very minor, small characters that have now become afflicted, and we realise really the danger that awaits us. We board a vessel over here in a primary quest, and we hit the main city. As soon as you hit the main city, all the content really becomes level 20 content. So this was actually a moment, and Zendaijan itself too, that I got very stuck at when I very first played Factions, because you really did have to do side quests around here. Guild Wars doesn't often do that, but in Factions it was kind of true that if you were just rushing through, you were really, really underleveled at this point, and when you hit the city, it was a struggle. So you could kind of stick around here, try and get as close to 20 as possible, and then proceed. So yeah, I'm happy we managed to make it through that. Now, I do think, based on the damage here, you can see I did 500 damage. But what have we got here? Well, the bottom build, so that's this Ritualist, so that's the Gaki, I think, isn't it? That's the Melodic Gaki. The Melodic Gaki actually did the most damage in the entire run, which was pretty awesome. So I think we should keep... I mean, what I could do is keep the damage. It's tricky, though. I mean, what's quite interesting is the Island Guardian was healing really well, but actually did some decent damage as well. The Island Guardian with the Smite Spear, this was a good build. And the Signet, it actually got a bit of damage out, and it was healing quite well. And there was that usage of the hard res, which I didn't need, so maybe I'll keep the Island Guardian. I love that it actually hit that hybrid quite well. But then the question is, what do we do about the Kappa? Because the Kappa almost did the same damage as the Ritualist. So there is the Gaki. There's a thing that you guys should know about this game. Sometimes when you're drafting, if you see a really strong card, like I now know that the Kappa's pretty strong, you might want to refrain it from using it early game because, or in a mission that you think is going to be too easy, because it gets graveyarded now. We only get to keep 2. The others go to the graveyard. We won't get them again. So, you know, I wish I'd used the Second Servant, essentially, and then I could have kept the Kappa. So if I fail this challenge, my next run through, a bit like in a roguelite, I think I would know now, okay, this minion's a little bit better, so I will pick it but not use it, and I'm going to save it for a stronger mission or whatnot. Oh, who do we get rid of? I mean, the Assassin was pretty good. I think I'm going to have to figure this out in the next video. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll think about this. I'll figure out who the 2 we keep are. And we will go forward from there. So I'll see you guys next time for the mainland. And things are going to be a lot harder from here on out.